Hey all, welcome back to the range. Jeremy from thetruthaboutguns.com here, out with the help of Silencer Shop. Appreciate those guys. Check out silencershop.com because they make the suppressor purchasing process easier than anyone else in the industry. But we're not shooting suppress today, unfortunately. Didn't have a threaded barrel for this guy handy. What I do have is a Glock with a red dot on it. This is a Crimson Trace Rad Pro. Their new Rad line is pretty exceptional. I was at a gun sight a couple of weeks ago shooting all of the new Crimson Trace Rad optics, and I've been shooting pistols with red dots on them for quite a while, but I learned something new at gun sight that really made me a better optics equipped pistol shooter. And I thought, you know what, there's a lot of new shooters in the market. There's a lot of people who are longtime shooters and just trying red dots on pistols. And I actually think it's harder for those folks than it is for someone who's just new to it and starting out with the red dot. So I thought I'd make a quick video with 3 tips for shooting a dot equipped pistol. First and foremost, this might seem obvious, but it's not, because maybe you spent your whole life training to focus on that front sight. When I am shooting a red dot equipped pistol, I am focusing on the target. And that's actually one of the huge advantages to shooting with a red dot. Instead of trying to focus on a front sight, which is close to you, and somehow keep your target even vaguely in focus, which most people cannot do. I can't, you know, I'm 39, but my eyes are not good for that. The red dot is a huge advantage. Focus on your target, specifically like the bullseye of your target, not the whole target. And when you have that red dot up there, it just appears in your vision. You do not look at the dot. So that is tip and key pointer number 1, and probably the most important thing to shooting a red dot well. When I was at that gun sight course, every now and then I found myself pulling my focus back onto the dot itself, just because I am so used to focusing on that front sight, and every time I did, I was off. Every time I looked at the target and just let that dot appear in my vision, I'm dead on every time. So there you go, tip number 1. Now, tip number 2 is kind of a reaction to everyone saying, you know what, I tried a red dot, but I'm way slower at self-defense distances with it. And I was too. I used to shoot some like IPSC style competition, and I tried it with a red dot, and I was a little bit slower on those close targets, sometimes a lot slower on the close-in targets. Now, the advantage, of course, is 25 yards and beyond. I can make accurate torso shots at 100 yards with this. I can make headshots at 50. I cannot do that with iron sights, so the advantage at distance is clear. The close range is where it really gets hard, and that's because people feel like they need to see that dot. So tip number 2, if you're within like 7 yards and you're doing self-defense or competition style shooting, don't worry about the dot. What you have here is this big old ring on that frame. Just use it like a ghost ring sight. If your target is inside of the frame of that optic, pull the trigger. You're going to hit the target. You're going to be center mass. So if you're, contact distances, self-defense, don't worry about the dot. Don't slow yourself down by waiting to see that dot, which is harder on a target that's really close, because it's moving faster, you're moving faster, and just use this thing like a giant ghost ring. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, and I'm gonna go live for this one, is the presentation of the firearm from a holster or from low. Now, I have always learned my entire life is when you draw that firearm up, you raise the front of it so you can see that front sight coming up. You see the front sight, and then you cant it down and you fire when you've got your sights aligned. Always nose high, see the front sight, and I'm bringing it down and I'm focusing on the front sight. This is the tip that I learned at gun sight that changed how quickly I could get on target with a pistol. Draw it like usual, but from here, instead of tipping it up, we're gonna keep the slide completely parallel with the ground and just try to bring it up flat, and just up, up, up. I'm looking at my target, and all of a sudden, there's the red dot. It appears in front of me, in front of my target. So it was that keeping the slide parallel that got me onto target way faster than before with that red dot. It is just so much better than trying to get it up here and then tip it down and then looking for the dot. So what we also learned, we're drawing, coming up, you join hands here a little bit closer than usual, and right now I'm coming up, and as soon as I'm coming up, I'm getting on the trigger. I see that sight on my target, I push forward and break the trigger when I'm out there. So much faster with the parallel slide. I was a little nose high on that one. I just got to break that habit. Nice. And it's different with every pistol because the height over bore is different. It's different from iron sights, is a little bit taller. some optics, some pistols. So if you've got a really consistent draw because you've been shooting your whole life and you know exactly where you're gonna press that gun, when you do it now, it's a little different. And that is why we're keeping it parallel and bringing it up. So as soon as it gets there, push out, fire. Nice, so thank you Gunsight and Crimson Trace for giving me that training. That helped me a lot, and that's tip number 3, which is when presenting your firearm parallel to the ground. Hope that helps you guys shoot an optics equipped pistol a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently, faster, and more accurate. Thanks for joining. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.